Hey, folks, I want to just take a few minutes and have a quick discussion because I'm getting filleted in numerous platforms, LinkedIn, Facebook. Pick the one you want. So here's the thing. When I look at the video and I watch the six Congress people, the biggest flaw is the ambiguity, not the intent. No, we really don't know what the intent is. And I've argued this with a couple of people. It's like, okay, were they just in general stating to the average Joe Snuffy, the average military person, don't follow unlawful orders? Were they aiming towards the combatant commander at Southcom, who's in charge of Operation Southern Spear, which is the Venezuela boat bombings, which I think is highly illegal, but we don't know that yet. Or are we talking about the National Guardsmen are being deployed throughout some of our cities and, just in a horrific sense there too, which again, I don't think that necessarily is legal, but I'm not a constitutional lawyer and I'm not the Supreme Court, so I can't make those judgment calls. So we don't really know what the intent is, but from my perspective, it was the ambiguity of the video that is the problem. It's not knowing what the audience is. We're not knowing whether or not it's a general population in some type of political type of arena that they're trying to hop into for the presidential election in 2028. I don't know. So when it comes to the military, and I have a little experience with this, 30 years, and I went from everything from enlisted to a senior enlisted to a junior officer to a more senior officer. Yes, every day or every school we go to, there's some discussion on what is a lawful order. And those we consider what we call, from an individual perspective, a manifestly lawful order. Think Mylai, think Abu Ghraib prison, think the Nuremberg trials. All of those, they're rare, but they're clear cut, right? You can't shoot unarmed civilians. You can't torture prisoners. You can't bomb cemeteries. You can't bomb churches. I mean, there's all kinds of these things that are very, very clear. And at the individual level, all military understands. And there's no question there. The question I ask is, when we are concerned about President Trump, what unlawful order has he either given, or do these congressional members believe he possibly could give? If you know what that is, throw that down in the comments, because I'd love to entertain that discussion. No matter where I've been, I've asked that question and not a single person has indulged in having that discussion. All right. Before we go there, though, the other thing that concerns me is when you listen to the congressional members, again, we don't know their intent, but when we listen to congressional members, they're almost putting the soldier, the airman, the Marine, the guardian, they're putting them in a position which they're almost like the constitutional referee. Again, manifestly unlawful orders is simple. The others are not so simple. And that's why it's funny, most people don't realize this, but we actually have 4 different oath of offices that we take. There is an oath of office I took as a National Guardsman, and that stated that my commander-in-chief was the governor of the state of West Virginia, then the state of Texas later on. That was part of it. As an enlisted person, I had to defend the Constitution, but I had to obey the orders of the President of the United States and the officers appointed above me. As an officer, I did not have an oath of office that said anything about the President of the United States. It had to do with the Constitution. So as you can see, even the oath of offices changes what the responsibility is of the individual. As an officer, it was my job to ensure that the orders that I sent down to battalion, to company, to platoon were lawful orders. So I was that constitutional circuit breaker of means. When I worked on the joint staff and I did planning, and when I was a war planner, because that was my job, you know, rules of engagement was something that we really spent a lot of time on to make sure that those were correct. Were we in a just war? Jus ad bellum, jus in bellum. Is it a just war? How do you actually execute war in a just fashion? If you ever get a chance, read St. Augustine's City of Gold. It's a fantastic read. I digress. But my point is that Kelly and the others, they make the service member the constitutional referee, and that's not their job. I don't want, as a company commander, I don't want that lowest level private questioning my orders outside of manifestly unlawful orders. If I was the platoon leader and I said, if I was, Lieutenant Callie from Mylai, and I said to shoot civilians, different story, completely different story. However, I don't want, it's not good for good order and discipline within the military for those lowest level enlisted and junior officers to be saying, is this legal? The assumption is it is legal. I wrote the plan. We're executing the commander's intent. We're executing the plan. It's a legal plan. It's already gone through all the legal, discussions. It's already gone through JAG. It's already gone through the war planners. All we are doing is executing what has been already worked on. Trump's sedition rhetoric, it escalates the problem. It's interesting. I've been, a couple of people have asked me is whether or not, well, why can he go after Senator Kelly? Well, first off, myself included, as a retired military officer, I still fall underneath the UCMJ, the Uniform Code of Military Justice. It doesn't go away for me. It doesn't go away for Kelly either. The incompetence of the Trump administration is what's going to ensure that they can't do anything. And the reason why I say that is they immediately tried to change the narrative. They tried to state that the Congress persons stated that they were telling military members not to follow lawful orders. It's not what they said. So that incompetence is just there. Them trying to switch the narrative, gaslight the base, put out something that remotely wasn't true. Imagine that, the Trump administration saying something that's not true. Riddle me that one. But that change of narrative is where their case falls apart. Now, if they would have tried to state that Senator Kelly designed a message directed at the lowest level of troops in order to disrupt military operations and morale, that might actually have been a legitimate argument. But that's not what they're trying to argue. I don't know if this has helped or not. My point is that without, I think that the video was reckless. I would have preferred that they said that they're talking to the Joint Chiefs of Staff or they were talking to the Secretary of Defense. Like, that would matter. At least with General Mattis, he was a guardrail. Hegseth is not. Hegseth was a National Guard major. He's if he would have ever gone to the Command and General Staff College, he would know better than what he's doing right now. So he didn't even have that level of education. There are guardrails that are in place, and those unlawful orders that are not the ones at the individual level, the manifestly unlawful orders, those have already been worked through the wickets of whether or not they're lawful or illegal or illegal. Back to my question. Let me know what we're talking about. Is somebody concerned that President Trump is going to say or going to tweet out or truth out or whatever the hell you call it, shoot protesters? Yes, that is unlawful. However, there are, Trump cannot pick up the phone. This is not Hollywood. He can't pick up the phone and call the lowest line troop and say, I order you to shoot civilians. That's not the way this works. That would have, especially it's a National Guard troop on active duty. So you're talking about having to go from, the president to the Secretary of Defense, Secretary of War, sorry, Secretary of Defense, down to the governor, the adjutant general, the tag of the state, down. I mean, we're talking about it would have to go all the way down, and the number of layers that it would have to go to eventually get to the point that the rules of engagement are changed to where, and then it has to go to a JAG officer who says, okay, that's legal. The rules of engagement have to be changed to where we use lethal force against civilians, which would be horrific. And I'll tell you that, being that I spent a lot of time around the Guard, Kent State is still in their vernacular, still scared to shit out, they're scared to death about that one. If you don't know what Kent State was, look it up. 1970s, Guardsmen shoots protesters. If it gets to the point that we actually change the ROE down to the lowest Joe, and she is told to shoot unarmed civilians, we've got a whole lot more problems than that one little bottom problem. So that one. Now, if you're talking about Venezuela and so forth, that's different. But that's not what Kelly and them were talking about. Your lowest level. Do you want the Navy intel officer who's sitting on which one's, I forget which ship, the Ford, who's sitting on a Ford and he's flying a drone? Do you want that petty officer to turn around and say, I'm sorry, sir, I don't think this is a lawful order for me to shoot down this lawful target? No, that's not the way this works. So let me know. I mean, what order do you think that they're trying to do? And I hate the idea that you all are making me kind of defend or go against Kelly and the congressional members, because I Kelly's a hero. I mean, God, captain in the Navy, astronaut. He's got more hero in his thumbnail than Hegseth has in his whole body. And I don't want to talk about Trump. So I'm hoping this clarifies a little bit. I know this is kind of long-winded, kind of around the world on stuff. If you get a chance, I've written a lot about this on Substack. Go through. Tell me where I'm wrong. But it feels like the ambiguity of the video was bad. The response by Trump is worse, and we're in a position that this is not good. So again, thanks for watching. If you got comments or questions, throw it down in the bottom and I'll circle back around. Until next time, guys, stay frosty.